In this video, we will see how easy it is to install the Nexus 1000V with its installer app. We have a vSphere cluster with 2 hosts, and we will launch the installer app in standard mode. First thing, we will see a list of prerequisites that the vSphere cluster needs to be compliant with. That's basically basic list of stuff like you already have to have Enterprise Plus installed, you should have redundant NICs and this kind of information. After clicking on next, then we will have to introduce the IP address for the vCenter server and its credentials. The installer app will then connect to it and retrieve information which is required in order to install the Nexus 1000V. After that information has been retrieved, then we can start introducing the hosts where the virtual supervisor modules will be installed. Remember, these VSMs or virtual supervisor modules are the control points, the 2 VMs that we need in order to control the Nexus 1000V and will work in active standby mode. You can choose the hosts where these VMs will be installed either out of a menu or typing manually IP address and data store names. This is what we are doing with the second host, where we install the standby VSM module. You should be giving a name for the Nexus 1KV, and you should specify which OVA contains the right image to generate those VSMs, those virtual supervisor modules. This OVA can be found in the software that you can download out of Cisco.com, containing every software related to the 1KV. Some information related to the 1KV, like it's going to work in layer 3 mode, its IP address, network mask, default gateway, domain ID, whether the hosts where the VSMs are installed are to be integrated in the 1KV. You click on next, and then the installer app will verify that this information is consistent with the deployment you are trying to install on. Some seconds will go through, and then here we are ready to start the installation. Now it's a good time to go have a coffee. Here in this video we have accelerated a bit what's happening. As you can see on the right side of the screen on vCenter, the installer app has already deployed the virtual supervisor module VMs out of the OVA images. These VMs are being launched. We can see on the console window that these VMs are already working. What we are seeing here is the primary VSM. It's already completely booted. We can check whether it's already reachable. It's indeed reachable, so the next thing we could try to do is to SSH to it. Underlying SSH telnet is not going to work with the default settings. You can always activate it, but on the default settings the telnet connections will be rejected, as we are going to see in the screen here. So you should be SSH into it. I have a small issue with my SSH fingerprints that I have to delete and regenerate, but once we do that, then we can see that the shell of the 1KV is reachable. The show module command shows that only the active VSM, the active virtual supervisor module, is there. We don't have any secondary, any standby VSM. We don't have any VEM yet, which is consistent with the stage of the wizard. Here, the final steps in the installation sequence are being taken, and the next step is adding the hosts to the Nexus 1000V. To that purpose, the software needs to be installed. Remember this VEM or Virtual Ethernet Module software needs to be installed in the ESX hosts, and after that then the ESX hosts can be migrated from the vSwitch to the virtual distributed switch where the Nexus 1000V is running. Here we can see the port profiles have been already created where the ESX hosts will be running on. And we are really almost done with the installation, as you can see, in a bit longer than 13 minutes. Here we are already done. We should click on no, not to install any additional modules unless you want to proceed with integrating more hosts into the 1KV. And the only thing we can do now is just do some verifications that the installation process went fine, and then start using the 1KV. So really here we are done with the installation, and we will start verifying that everything has been installed as appropriate. We can have a look at the 1KV, we can have a look at vSphere. We will have a look later on those alerts on the ESX hosts. They are there because of the small glitch that interrupted the connectivity between vCenter and the ESX host during the migration from the vSwitch to the DVS. We'll have a look at it later. We can have a look into the network configuration. There's the DVS that has been created, and we can see on the command line interface from the 1KV the different information here. Here, for example, we can create a new port group in order to connect web virtual machines. Let's create it and see how it gets added to the distributed virtual switch in vCenter. So let's create this port profile, really easy, just a switch port, an access port assigned to a VLAN, in this case VLAN 17. Very basic configuration, no quality of service, no access lists, and when we enable this port profile, it will be transmitted, it will be communicated to vCenter server as a port group, which we will see here in a second. So here's the DVS, and here you have the new port group that has been created in the 1KV. So the communication is working properly between the 1KV and vCenter. Back to the 1KV, you can run a couple of interesting commands, like for example the different VNICs that have been provisioned. Now we only have 2 virtual machines and 2 VSMs with 3 VNICs each, so those are the 6 different VNICs in the system. And yeah, let's have a look at these alerts that I referred to before. As I mentioned before, and sorry for the demo being in German, this is just a short connectivity glitch that happened during the migration from the vSwitch to the DVS. And you can safely delete those alerts because the connectivity has already been restored. And well, this is basically it. Now you're ready to rumble with your new Nexus 1KV.